Hi everyone, it's Emily, and I have a list here of 10 JRPGs that I apparently cannot shut up about. Whether it's on our podcast, the JRPG Pursuit, where we talk about JRPGs every single week, or it's during my live streams, where these are always JRPGs that I make references to and are on top of mind. These are, I think, a good, solid, well-rounded list of JRPGs I just always bring up. It's sort of a top 10 JRPG list of all time, though to be honest, there are so many other games that could have made this list because there are a lot of solid JRPG experiences out there. But I kind of chose these games as both ones I played as a kid, as well as more recently, that have a bit of a recency bias. So I wanted to take the time and just gush about them with you guys today. The first one is one that's been very much on top of mind, most because the Nintendo Switch 2 upgrade path is finally out, and that is for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I love this game. I was definitely hesitant to start it after all the negative criticism because it is a very divisive Xenoblade game. Most because I think a lot of people just don't like the main character, Rex, which I still kind of side-eye, I won't lie when people say that. I think his character growth is amazing, and there's some people, of course, who don't like the character designs of the blades or the gacha systems, or they don't like the combat because of how complex it is. You name it. There's plenty of reasons to criticize Xenoblade 2, and that's fine. But for me, I adore this game so much. I just love all the different areas and exploring in them. It's so fun. I also adore the combat system, especially once you get into the chain attacks with the different elements and everything. It's just so fun to have that finally click for you, because it certainly does take a while for all the systems to click. And sometimes you have to go on YouTube to look up, like, how do you actually play Xenoblade 2, because they don't do the best job with the tutorials. I totally understand that. But I think once you get kind of immersed in this game, whether it's the music or just the story itself, there's something very amazing and magical about Xenoblade 2. And I'm so glad that the upgrade path is finally out on the Switch 2, where we get to see this game in all of its glory at 4K and 60 frames per second. And they also had some quality of life stuff inserted in there too with the field skills, which I'm sure a lot of people will be happy about. But yes, I adore this game and implore more people to play it if you've been hesitant. Now, these games are of course not in any order, so we're just going to go right into the next one, which is Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology. This is, I think, probably my favorite game on the 3DS. I never played Radiant Historia when it was out on the DS because I didn't have a DS system at the time, so I jumped right into the Perfect Chronology version. And this handheld experience is something that Atlus really needs to bring back and not have locked to the 3DS, because I really want more people to play this game. As you'll notice, I think with a lot of games on this list, I very much am a character-focused player, and I think how they fleshed out the characters in Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology was top tier, like S tier, of how they did the character progressions and how they integrated time travel to kind of reflect upon all the different characters' motivations and what choices they can make and what the consequences could be. I think they handled the time travel aspect very well, where it's very digestible. Definitely, I think the characters, how the game looks, the music, everything's great. But I think what really shines in this game is definitely the combat. I love the grid system where you have this push mechanic and you're kind of encouraged to try to build up as many chains as possible to just annihilate all of the different swarms of enemies that hit you, and also take into account different time and delay progressions. It's, I think, a very brilliant system that we don't have enough in JRPGs. More games should definitely lift, or rather steal, this combat system because it is that good. And I know this game is locked on the 3DS. There are ways to play it, of course, but it is a little bit less obtainable than many other games on this list. So that's why I really hope Atlus someday brings it back. It really should be more accessible and more people should play this game. The next game should be of no surprise if you've watched my channel before, and that is Trails in the Sky First Chapter. The Trails series is by far my favorite series of all time, so of course there's going to be a Trails game on this list. And the one that I keep thinking about is the remake of Sky. I first played them on my Vita, playing the Evolution versions of the Sky trilogy, And while those versions of the game definitely, I think, still hold up today, the remake is really the one that I keep thinking about, mostly because the second chapter or second part of the remake is coming out very soon. And I do think bringing up this game is probably the best one to bring up because this is where people should start if you've never played Trails before. Or if you have played Trails before, you want to revisit the Sky Arc, this is definitely a great way to re-experience this game. This is a remake that I am so pleased by. Not only does it look beautiful, but the gameplay is so great with the modern touches of Trails, incorporating both the action, hybrid, and turn-based that we all know and love with Trails games. It's really the best system that Falcom has done so far. But I'm sure when second chapter comes out, second chapter will be replacing first chapter just because I know the events that happen in that game. I can't wait to see how it looks in a remake in the same style as first chapter. It's gonna be amazing. It's all I'll just say, just amazing. This is really just, I think, a masterclass game of slow burn with great payoff. And the payoff definitely is tenfold when you play the second part, second chapter that's coming out soon. But even the payoff at the end of first chapter, definitely worth playing if you are very much a story and character focused player like myself. But anyways, I can't sing enough praises about Trails, so go play Trails. But next up, I wanted to talk about another 3DS game from another favorite franchise of mine, and that is Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia. This is a story of Alm and Celica, and a very unique Fire Emblem experience because this is kind of a remake of the second Fire Emblem game that we never got out here in the West. And I thought it was really cool that we had dual protagonists with an interwoven story. This has great character growth for both Alm and Celica, and I really grew very attached to these characters as we saw their progression, and I also really liked this canon romance that we don't really get too much in JRPGs nowadays. I think there's been kind of a favor of either a harem sort of romance in a lot of JRPGs, like where you get to pick the girl, or they kind of just leave it to the imagination. But this one is definitely a nice, lovely canon romance that I keep thinking about, and pushing more games will kind of do. But whenever it comes to tactical gameplay, I always go back to Fire Emblem as being sort of the gold standard of tactics or turn-based strategy RPGs. And this is no exception here. I know there's plenty of criticism about the map design sometimes for this entry, but I personally liked all the maps and just found the combat so satisfying to play. This is unfortunately another game that's stuck on the 3DS, but of course there are ways to play it if you have not played it yet. And hopefully Nintendo will bring it back in some form or fashion, so it is more accessible on modern systems, because this is definitely, I think, a Fire Emblem entry that should not be buried on the 3DS. It has a really great story that I think people who want something a bit more traditional, but also there's casual mode or, focus on support systems of different characters. I think there's a lot to please a lot of different types of Fire Emblem fans in this entry. And now we're going to go with one of my childhood favorite games that I can't stop thinking about, and I keep thinking, when am I going to replay this game too? And that is Final Fantasy XII. There are a lot of Final Fantasy games that I've been playing recently. I recently beat 6, the 7 remakes with Rebirth, Remake, and Integrate, as well as Final Fantasy X in Tactics within this past year. And I can't help but always go back and think about where I started my Final Fantasy journey, and that was with 12. Now, this is another divisive JRPG, but there's something about, I think, your first Final Fantasy game that sometimes just always ends up being your favorite or one of your favorites, and also just one that you always just can't help but think about. And that is the case for me. I really loved this when I played this on the PS2 back when I was a teenager. It was one of the most beautiful games I had played at that time in my life, and I just loved the whole kind of mysterious sort of atmosphere around this game that just definitely intrigued me and made me want to dive a little bit deeper into Ivalice, learn more about what was going on politically. There was a lot of political intrigue that I never really experienced in the game prior to my time with Final Fantasy XII, that just kept me very invested in just making progress and trying to beat the game. and I eventually did pull it off. I was a little disappointed, of course, with the ending. I think a lot of us were. But for the most part, I have very positive memories of this game. I loved the Gambit system. I got so hooked to it as a kid, and at that time when I was playing it, I was dabbling into MMOs, and so it was so cool to see kind of a single-player MMO-like combat style being portrayed. And it kept me wanting more. And to this day, I still really want to play the Zodiac Age version because I do know they changed the combat a little bit where it's a little bit less obtuse, but I still like the whole kind of programming aspect where you tell different characters what to do and when to trigger things. For me as a kid, that was just amazing to kind of see play out in a single player game. I also really like the characters. I know there's a lot of criticism about Final Fantasy XII characters, but despite all that, I felt very attached to the characters and just wanted to see, where their journey led them as I was playing it. So Final Fantasy XII, I think, will always have a special place in my heart. Even if there are arguably better Final Fantasy games out there, 12 is just one I'll keep advocating for. I think it gets a little bit more harsh criticism than it really should. Just like with Final Fantasy XII, I think there's always something special about a first game that you played in a franchise, especially if it's been out of order and you don't really need to play those games in a particular order. And so the next game I want to talk about is Atelier Ayesha. Now, this was, of course, my first dive into the Atelier franchise, but Ayesha, I think, as a character is what really shines. She is just so wholesome and very optimistic despite the circumstances she found herself in, and her drive to save her sister by learning more alchemy and trying to push the boundaries, I thought was very admirable of how she went about it. And this is another kind of example of a slow burn game that has large payoffs. And it's not so much large payoffs in terms of the story, like what happens in the story, kind of like Trails does. It's more of payoffs in how you see the character development and growth, and just so rewarding on that front. This is definitely a game that I think made me appreciate more character-focused games and just inner relationships. I always loved, triggering all the little cutscenes and events that play out in the Atelier games, especially in Ayesha, of just Ayesha talking with her companions or, people she meets along the way in her journey. And there's something, I think, very special about these slower-paced JRPGs that I just can't help but think back to. A lot of the times when people want to talk about JRPGs, it's about the epic stories and, peak fiction that's happening, and I think those are all great and solid, but there's something about a cozy RPG experience that isn't trying to be some sort of grand epic. Rather, it's just a nice, tight-knit story that really is focused and something very special. Now, this next game here is probably a little bit of a recency bias because I only beat this a few months ago, but it's one that I can't stop talking about at all, and that is Ys 10 Proud Nordics. I've played Ys games in the past and really liked them. I always found, the combat systems in Ys very fluid and fun as an action RPG. But I think what set Ys 10 Proud Nordics apart for me was definitely the characters in the story. There's definitely more emphasis, I think, on those aspects of this entry in Ys, and I know some people kind of criticized it for being a little bit too Trails-like, but honestly, that's what I really liked about it. I really adored talking to the NPCs and learning more about the whole different islands and areas you could go to on your ship, and the whole dynamic between Karja and Audel and how they, bantered and played off one another was just so fun. And the story itself, I thought, was very satisfying from start to end. But definitely the battle systems, I think, definitely took a huge shine, and very different from the other Ys entries where you really had to focus on breaking shields and then going in with a dual sort of attack. It was just so fun and fluid, and it makes me very excited to see what Falcom is cooking up for the next Ys game. I'm really hoping that they take a lot of notes from what they did in Proud Nordics here and continue expanding upon it, because just this direction has made me so happy, and I can't help but really want a sequel to Ys 10 Proud Nordics. I know Falcom doesn't really do that with the Ys games, but there's something about these characters that I will be really sad not to be able to return to. I guess you can always replay the game, but it'd be so cool to see these characters, continue their journeys and see kind of where they end up. in some sort of cameo or fashion like that. I know a lot of people are a little upset with Valcom for releasing the English version of Nordics so close to the base 10 version. Unfortunately, what happens when you have delayed localization, so the timing just wasn't right. And it's unfortunate that happened and that people are put off wanting to play this because of that. But the Proud Nordics version is great. I really like what they did with the streamlining of the ship systems. You can get around from island to island so much faster. And the extra story content's a bonus too. And I think there's some other quality of life enhancements that very much appreciated when I was playing the Proud Nordics version. But anyways, play East 10 in any way you want, whether it's the base version or the Proud Nordics version. This is definitely, I think, a story and a group of characters you don't want to miss out on. Now, I have yet another 3DS game on this list because, if you can't tell, I really love the JRPGs that are available on the 3DS. And they're ones I just can't stop talking about. And this one is Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor Overclocked. This is another turn-based strategy RPG, and I really loved what they did with this game. The combat was fun, of course, and recruiting all the different demons and doing the demon fusion systems. So much fun in any SMT game, but I just really liked how they handled this in a handheld tactics fashion. The branching paths, too, were really cool to see in an experience like this. The premise, too, of the story and the characters were also super memorable, where you have this group of teenagers that are stuck inside Tokyo, and they're trying to escape while this whole basically apocalypse is happening, and they have all these different adversities that they have to face, whether it's the government or a religious cult or some sort of god themselves. They have so many things they have to do to try to flee and escape the city. Just like with a lot of other SMT sort of games I've played, I got so addicted to the demon fusion system, trying to make sure my team and party were top notch. So fun to do that. Definitely a very memorable game for me. One of my favorite games on handheld in general. So definitely play this if you never played an SMT game before, or if you have played the mainline SMT games. This one definitely is not one you should ignore. Just amazing storytelling, amazing characters, and just such fun combat. Now, another oldie but goodie that I can't help thinking about and talking about all the time is Kingdom Hearts 2. In fact, I'm actually starting to do my replay of the Kingdom Hearts games because I want to get ready for 4. But there's something about Kingdom Hearts 2 that I can't help but think about all the time. This is definitely one of the experiences I had on the PS2, which was my first ever home console system, that left a huge impression on me. I adored the first Kingdom Hearts game, and I played Chain of Memories, and so I don't quite remember if I played Chain of Memories before or after experiencing Kingdom Hearts 2. But even if those memories are somewhat fuzzy for me, there's something about Kingdom Hearts 2 that just really resonated with me. It was really cool to see the contrast between Roxas and Sora's story and how they really expanded upon what they built with Kingdom Hearts. Like, really, there were so many upgrades to everything, whether it was the character writing, the story itself. And we started to see a little bit of the weirdness when it comes to the Kingdom Hearts story in 2, of course. But it was still very digestible to me as a kid playing Kingdom Hearts 2 that I just adored and was so swept up in everything. And this is speaking as someone who's not a huge Disney person. I just adored Kingdom Hearts so much. Visiting, of course, the different Disney worlds, interacting with some of the Disney characters, but also the Final Fantasy characters. This was all predates before I started playing Final Fantasy. I was just hooked on all these different characters. And of course, the unique Kingdom Hearts characters. I couldn't help but feel so attached to them and wanted to know what was going on. It's such a memorable story for me that I'm making an effort to replay all these for a reason, because these just left such an impression on me. I replayed this a ton as a kid, actually. So it's been, I don't know, maybe 20 years since I revisited it. So I'm looking forward to whenever I get back to Kingdom Hearts 2, and probably going to be gushing more about it and not shutting up about why I love this franchise so much and why it's one that definitely has stuck with me and shaped my whole JRPG journey. Now, the last game on this list of 10 JRPGs is sort of showing a little bit more of my recency bias because I played and beat this game within the past year, but I think this is going to be a game that I'll be referring back to for a very long time. The Switch version and Switch 2 version finally just came out, so I know some people are experiencing this game for the first time, but I played it back when it first launched and was blown away. I was someone who grew up with Digimon, but didn't play a lot of the Digimon games. I had previously played the Cyber Sleuth games and loved them, but Time Stranger just brought what we knew about Digimon and how it could be a JRPG and just expanded so much, built up so much, and made it such an amazing experience. They really outdid themselves with all the different worlds and how they introduced time travel and all the character development and just the heart of the story. I was very invested in all the characters and really loved what they did with some of the storytelling and the twists and turns with the plot that I didn't see coming. It was so fun. I loved the combat and, of course, all the different Digi-evolutions and things you could do in this game was amazing. This is the first time ever that I filled out the complete field guide. I got all 475 Digimon. I never do this in Pokemon or any other sort of monster hunting taming game, but I was determined because I loved this game so much and wanted to see all the cool different Digi-evolutions and things you could do with this game mechanically. But yeah, I think Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth was pretty popular when it first came out, I think because of just how beautiful it was and all the different worlds and cool things you could do combat-wise with all the different Digi-evolutions. But really, I think what's underplayed is definitely the story. On our podcast, The JRPG Pursuit, we actually did a spoiler cast about mostly talking about the story because I think not enough people want to talk about it on YouTube because mostly there's a ton of spoilers there of what happens, but it just was so cool. Some of the things that they did and how masterfully they handled certain themes without being too corny. And I cannot wait to see what the DLC that they have planned for next year. I hope there's going to be some story expansions or story DLC and some cool other mons that you could digivolve to. But I think it's looking very bright of what is going to be happening with the Digimon Story series from Bandai Namco. So I'm very much looking forward to experiencing more Digimon JRPGs in the future. So that was my list of 10 JRPGs that I just cannot shut up about and cannot help but gush about. Have you guys played these games? Do you also feel similarly to how I feel about them? I know, again, there's some maybe strange choices off this list, but I think this is what's really special about JRPGs in general. There's always going to be JRPGs that stand out more to you than maybe others, and that's just what makes this genre so unique, that there's so many amazing experiences. They don't necessarily have to be 10 out of 10 experiences, but just games that really resonate with you and ones you can't help but think about all the time. And I'd like to take this time to thank all of my channel members who help make videos like these as well as my live streams possible. And a huge shout out to all of my Orbment Architect level members. Trin, Night Noctum, George, Just Another Joe, Dan, Scott Healy, Osman, Steven, Joe, Champagne Sherpa, Skylit Sane, I'm Aki, John, Heidi, and Guinevere. Thank you so much for all your support. It's all to hear what games you guys can't help but talk about all the time. There are still a ton of JRPGs that I would like to experience and I'm slowly getting to. So if it's a game I haven't played yet, I'd love to hear what those are too, so I can maybe bump them up my list of on my backlog. But that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, bye-bye.